A new classified congressional UFO briefing is set for today, and Congressman Tim Burchett told NewsNation what to expect for today's hearing.
I expect to walk out and be completely disappointed once again. I don't want to see little green men or flying saucers. I just want to know where they're spending the tens of millions of dollars on a subject they say doesn't exist, and yet they're spending this money. The American public has a right to know. Congress constitutionally has a right to know. You have unelected bureaucrats, once again, dictating to the elected body what to do, and we take it. We don't have the guts. We ought to cut their funding out. We ought to do what we're entitled to do as a Congress. But again, the big boys, the lobbyists, the defense industry, what have you, they have their hooks in all of this, and they're not going to allow us to see anything. It's so compartmentalized now, it'd be hard to get the truth. But this bunch, again, will just be there to confuse us and further frustrate me.
Meanwhile, in a new interview, UFO whistleblower David Grusch shared if he has any regrets going public with alleged information on classified UAPs and the hit piece on him regarding his alleged mental health history.
Is there any moment where you've kind of regretted speaking up? You kind of had to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that was the, course of action I had to do. I mean, I don't, regret it. It's, I didn't want to live in the Matrix when there's stuff like this that's being, hidden from the world populace. Yeah, I'm not doing this for fame or fortune, and it was not career enhancing, and I had to do it for further my own protection when it seemed like my Inspector General complaint and my reprisal complaints weren't going to fully shield me from, ongoing attacks behind the scenes against myself.
Do you think that the people that we know are coming forward, people that have filed IG complaints, to follow in your footsteps, right? Do you think they're encouraged by how you've been treated?
Some were encouraged and inspired, and obviously there were a number of individuals that went to the Inspector General after I went public, but they certainly saw like that hit piece on me and other things, and that certainly frightens anybody to have that kind of stuff exposed in your personal life just because you're trying to do something, hopefully magnanimous for everybody else.
News Nation's Brian Enton spoke with a veteran Marine on a 17-minute-long interview of an alleged UFO jellyfish. Marines reportedly nicknamed this particular UFO a, quote, spaghetti monster.
Did you think when you watched it for the first time that, it could be, non-human?
It crossed my mind because the theories that we had, like I said, didn't fully explain it. And so naturally, I think our human mind or our curiosity kind of goes there and is like, is this something extraterrestrial or extra dimensional or paranormal or whatever, you want to call it. And it didn't seem to be posturing to threaten us at all. So it wasn't like we needed to take immediate action against it.
Very interesting. Perhaps this is the real reason they want, governmental monitors on those fishing charters, Amber. They're looking out for the jellyfish.
Yeah, maybe so. That video is pretty weird. There could be a rational explanation for it. There could not be. It could be very well be something extraterrestrial. The way it sort of glides is pretty odd. But back to this congressional hearing with Tim Burchett. He went on with that UFO podcast shortly after he left the skiff today. And he said that he thinks anybody who has been questioning David Grusch's credibility left there thinking and knowing that Grusch is legit, which is an interesting statement, considering how much pushback there has been against David Grusch, as we saw that hit piece against his character. And Tim Burchett has also said that he was talking to people who were in the Trump administration about his recent activity in regards to UFOs, and they told him that he kicked a hornet's nest and that he needs to get some bodies around him. So I just want to give Tim Burchett a shout out and a thank you for his tireless work on this issue. I know it's come at the expense of mockery by some of his colleagues and a lot of people not taking him seriously. But if there is a job for Congress, it's to try to get information that the government is hiding from the American people and bring it out into the open, or at least become aware of it themselves. And he's clearly doing that. So I think this issue is important. I appreciate that he's trying to hold them accountable and trying to get more answers on our behalf.
Yeah, if Tim Burchett was going on the news saying, I know there's aliens and we're going to find them, I can understand some people being questionable of that kind of a statement. If he says, there was definitely a spaghetti monster and believing all of the footage, even when it was unconfirmed, that's reason to not believe someone. Burchett's being super reasonable on the topic of UAPs. He's saying we're spending a ton of public dollars on this, evidently. The American people, or at least Congress, have a right to know what they've discovered. What information do they have? That is an extremely reasonable and sound and sane stance. For them to write that hit piece on David Grusch, I wouldn't be surprised if it discouraged people from coming forward who have information, because that hit piece didn't really have to do with his credibility as a witness, as someone giving testimony on this. The piece was about him struggling with mental health. Most sane people I know are quite sad about the state of the world, sad about, what's going on in the country. I'm sure if you have that level of security clearance, you've seen some stuff that disturbs you very deeply. If not thinking, you're more sane if you are critical, of what's going on in the world. You're more sane if it makes you sad, so much so that you seek treatment for mental health. That doesn't make him not credible. So that hit piece really disheartened me, but I can see anyone who struggled with their mental health or wants to protect their family not coming forward out of fear that they would be attacked. So I really didn't like that hit piece came out at all, because what's being asked for is very reasonable. But people love framing the alien enthusiasts, people who are curious about what's going on with UAPs, as somehow people who are insane just because we haven't seen aliens before, despite most scientists saying it is more likely than not that we are not the only life forms in the galaxy, if not the universe. And so it's just very dishonest. But thankfully, we'll get something out of the skiff, but maybe Burchett's right in how he said he plans to just be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard reports as well about how the government goes after its own whistleblowers. And so it's not surprising that a lot of people would be unwilling to come forward, even anonymously, because these protections that they're supposed to receive as whistleblowers are routinely undermined by their superiors in the government. And so it is a very unfortunate and dangerous situation for them. A lot of this information, of course, is classified. So necessarily, if these people come out publicly, they risk losing their clearance, their job, in general, just their livelihood, and they also risk being sued or put in jail. So it's not an easy decision, I think, for anyone to talk about this publicly. And then on the congressional side, I think what's especially frustrating is that as we have this dynamic where people who actually work directly with this information can't really talk about it publicly, at the very least, we should expect that Congress is able to get access to this information in a secure environment. And repeatedly, they've been denied from doing so. They've had to fight for months and even years now just to get these hearings where they can go in the skiff and view some of the materials. So repeatedly, it just seems like they're being stonewalled at every step of their potential investigation. And increasingly, the reasons become more erratic from the government as to why they're not allowed to view this.
Right. And these are people who are elected to public office. At the heart of this, it's a question about democracy. We touch on this point time and again when we discuss the issue of UAPs. But I can imagine someone like Tim Burchett or any real representative in Congress questioning the time they're spending on this issue when they go to the Pentagon, they're put in a skiff, and they're given no information at all. I can imagine questioning your role as a public servant, as an elected representative. Am I wasting America's time by continually going to the Pentagon and being disappointed, by expecting information to come out because I was elected to represent the people and this is what the people want, just to have unelected bureaucrats tell you, no, we're not giving you anything? So it's good that we haven't had members of Congress decide to give up on this. They've kind of been unrelenting in getting this information out, in pursuing interviews with people who have this information that are willing to come forward, many of them risking their security clearance, many of them being active members, not just retirees. And so it's kind of unprecedented territory in the sense that they're getting that. And so I can see why they still have a little bit of hope, but it sounds like Burchett's getting frustrated. He said he's getting frustrated, but I hope he's not on the verge of quitting, because he's done a really good job putting pressure on public officials to say, this is a democracy, people want this information, we should have it out there for the public to understand, or at least elected representatives have access to it.
That's going to do it for us this week on Rising. Jess, as always, it was great to see you.
Another good Friday with you, Amber.
Make sure to tune in next week for more Rising coverage with Robbie and Bree, and we will be right back here next Friday. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Bye, y'all.